All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There we go. All right, guys, welcome to tonight's masterclass, which is going to be all about building muscle, which is pretty much my favorite topic, way more fun than fat loss. So I'm super happy to see all of you guys here. If you have questions throughout, just drop them in the chat, but also at the end, if you want to talk key takeaways, like main questions, anything like that, we will do that as well. So basically, what we're going to chat about today is we're going to talk about firstly like why muscle is so important, because it's about more than just the visual. And this is probably stuff that you've heard before, but it really bears repeating because I don't want us just focus on aesthetics. There's so much more to building muscle. We're going to talk about the key elements, like how you actually build muscle, and I've put in brackets there hypertrophy. If you have ever seen that word and you're like, what the fuck does it mean? It's just building muscle. Hypertrophy, building muscle. So that's what we're going to talk about. Approaches to bulking. So, like, how do we actually go about wanting to build muscle, and what is the best approach? Kind of like what we spoke about in the Fat Loss Masterclass 2. The mindset you need, because there are certain mindset shifts that come along with it that are a little bit different to other journeys that we go on in our fitness journey, and how to measure progress as well. So first, I'm going to convince you why muscle is so freaking awesome. The first bit, and this is a really big one, is it helps you burn more calories and also manage your blood sugar better. Now, when we say muscle burns more calories, it's actually not that much. So per kilogram, 1 kilo of muscle burns 5 calories per day, whereas 1 kilo of fat burns 1 calorie per day. If you game that out, like, it's actually not that much more, but it is a pretty significant difference, which is also why, like, usually when someone has more muscle, they do get to eat a little bit more. They do get away with a little bit more than if you have predominantly body fat. So therefore, it helps you maintain your weight, but it's also a glucose storage unit. And actually, this is the bigger reason why muscle is so beneficial over time, and while it also protects you from things like diabetes. Because what happens is when we eat, all the food that we eat gets converted to glucose, which is energy. And so your body uses a certain amount of energy, but then usually there's excess, right? So with that excess energy, your body has two choices. It either stores it in your muscles, because that's the main storage unit, or it converts it to body fat. So if you have more muscle, if you have a day where you eat a little bit more, or you have more carbs, or you have more sugar, your body actually can store that and use it for energy later. Whereas if you have predominantly body fat, then your body is actually going to just like send that straight to your fat cells and you gain more fat. So if you've ever felt like, oh my God, that goes straight to my hips, that like people make those throwaway comments, like sometimes when we have more body fat, it can actually be like that more so than for someone who has more muscle. So big yay for muscle, makes it easier to maintain weight, which is also why it's so important that we protect our muscle when we're then your daily function is improved. So, muscle stabilizes your joints. So it's actually really protective for you as well. And you have enhanced mobility. It's just easier to do everyday shit, which, like, most of us are in our 30s, maybe 40s as well. Like, this is going to become more and more important the older we get, because if you don't build up this protective layer around your joints, you're going to end up frail. And I'm sure you guys all have like a mother or auntie or grandma who is frail and doesn't have that muscle. So it is so important that we build that now and actually protect our body. But there's more. Living longer. So there's actually like a direct correlation between your general risk of dying and how much muscle you have. Now, of course, like there is, as with most things, health and fitness, it's like the benefit goes up and then it like goes down as well. So, if you're a 200 kilo bodybuilder, there comes a point where it's no longer beneficial. But for the average person, and especially for us, like if you have more muscle, you're going to be healthier, you're going to live longer. You also have healthier bones. Every time we lift weights, like every time your muscles contract, they pull on the bones. And when that happens, it actually triggers new bone formation. So that's where, like, when we say muscle increases bone density, that's how it does it. Because when we're activating the muscles, this process gets triggered and keeps your bones healthier and protects from, fractures, osteoporosis, which is especially important post-menopause. I know some of you guys are there or are approaching that. That's where it's so important that we resistance train and keep working our muscles. And you'll feel better, because just like cardio, resistance training releases serotonin and endorphins. And of course, we feel more confident when we have more muscle because we look better, we have more shape. So yes, the visible is important, but there's also all these other reasons. Now, I know that I'm preaching to the converted. You guys are all in this program because you actually do care about your muscles and you do care about this stuff. But, it's always good to have these facts on hand and remember that it's so much more than just one thing. So, how do we build muscle? There's really 4 key elements to it. And the first, of course, is resistance training. You can build a little bit of muscle just through eating protein, which is crazy, but really most of your muscle and the first real step is going to be resistance training. And this is because when we lift weights, we create little micro tears in our muscle fibers and then they rebuild during recovery. And this becomes a signal for growth. So they rebuild, they come back stronger, we build muscle. And you probably hear me say this a lot, but the most effective way to train is to try and hit every muscle group twice per week, which is why most of you, in your workouts, you are doing upper body twice a week, or you might do full body sessions, or you might do lower body twice a week. Even if we're only training 3 days a week, we always make sure that you guys do everything on 2 occasions. And that is because that is one of the main things that's going to help you build muscle. And the ideal rep range, we used to say it's 8 to 12 reps, and you still hear that thrown around a lot, but that has actually been disproven. You can actually build muscle between 6 and 30 reps. Now, you guys are lucky. I don't really program 30 reps because I don't hate you, but you could still build muscle there. But we'll talk in a minute about why, even though that's possible, it might not be ideal. Now, as you guys know, we do sometimes take you lower as well in your rep ranges. And that is because we also want to care about strength. And strength and muscle kind of complement each other. Because if you think about it, the stronger you are, the more weight you can lift. So the more you can stimulate your muscles in the higher rep ranges. And then you build more muscle, and then more muscle has more potential for strength. And because getting strong is fun, we rotate through those periods where we're in the lower rep ranges, we're more focused on strength. We're in the higher rep ranges, we're more focused on muscle. But ideal rep range, 6 to 30 reps. Without resistance training, you're not going to see a visible change. Second thing, so now we get more granular, is mechanical tension. Now, this sounds really fancy, but all that is the force that happens when your muscles are stretched or contracted under load. That's it. It's called mechanical tension. Now, we optimize it by lifting weights between 70 to 85% of your 1RM. That's your 1 rep max. So this is why we use that RPE scale that you see in your workouts. And, as an RPE 7 is usually 60 to 70% of your 1 rep max. And, we can't always be here. We can't always be in this range, which is why we have that lighter week. But then after that, you guys are in this range all the time. So we're building the optimal mechanical tension to build muscle. And you also optimize it by focusing on slow and controlled movements. So, this is where often I'll be like, don't rush your reps. We want to actually be feeling it and not just going through the motions. Now, this is also maximized in those last few reps before failure. It's maximized in the last 2 or 3 reps before failure, which again is why I don't give you guys 30 reps, because to pick a weight that takes you close to failure with 30 is really fucking crazy and really fucking exhausting. So we don't really do that. We stay up to 20 reps, depending on how we're feeling on the day. Now, the third one is progressive overload. You've probably heard this a million times. Progressive overload is a gradual increase in stress on our muscles to stimulate growth. So you can do that by upping the weight, which, week to week is not always possible, but we do our best. But remember as well, as long as you're in that 75 to 85% of your 1 rep max, it's fine anyway. So we try to increase, but we just make sure the intensity is there. It's through increasing reps or sets week to week, which we actually do throughout the training block with you guys, or through increasing your time on attention. So that's where those, sometimes it'll be 3 seconds down in your squat or your RDL or whatever it might be. And that is another way to progressively overload. So really the resistance training is the umbrella, and then mechanical tension, so working at the right intensity and aiming for progress over time is the granular thing that we need to do. Now, I had a conversation before with Himani about increasing weights week to week. And it's not always realistic. And I really want you guys to understand that as well. Even though the instruction is like, increase your weight every week, like aim to go up. There are some exercises where that's just not going to be realistic. Like I've been lateral raising the same weight for the last 7 years. I go between like 3 different dumbbell weights, but it's practically the same. And some exercises will be like that. So that's where you just bring yourself back to that principle of mechanical tension and you go, does this feel hard? Does this feel within 70 to 85% of my max? Am I hitting my RPE? And if so, then it's okay if you can't progressively overload every week. It's just the general vibe of your lifting journey. And then way it works, it activates the satellite cells to repair and grow the muscle fibers. And whenever we like stress our body like that, we cause an adaptation, and the adaptation for muscle is to get stronger and larger. Yay. And then your fourth element, of course, is protein. And I touched on this before. You actually can build a little bit of muscle just by eating protein, but it's really not going to be like a huge difference. But with protein, the reason it's important is because there's a lot of like big words here, but I'll just keep it simple for you guys. So if we break protein all the way down, it's made up of amino acids. So amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. And then muscles are made out of proteins. But then protein is also really important for a lot of processes in our body, like hormonal processes and just for like all of our systems to run smoothly. So when you don't eat enough protein at any given time, your body needs to take protein from within. And the only place it can do that from is your muscles, right? So at any given time, your body wants to break down your muscles for protein to fuel these certain processes. This is called muscle protein synthesis. So what we need to do, muscle protein breakdown. So what we need to do is we need to make sure protein is coming in so that your body can use this external protein to fuel all the things it needs to do. And if you don't do that, then it's going to go to your muscles. We're going to lose muscle. We're going to use muscle for energy. And then in protein, I told you there's the amino acids. One specific one is called leucine. That's the most important one for this process because it triggers a certain pathway, which is important for growth. Now, you don't really have to worry about this unless you're vegetarian, which is where we talk about the difference between complete and not complete proteins. If you guys want to know more about that, we can chat about it some more. But really, like every animal protein by nature is complete and is going to be fine to support you on this journey. So all you need to remember is that the reason we bring protein in is so that our body doesn't go, where's my protein coming from? And starts to break down your muscles. How much should you have? You guys probably are sick to death of me talking about this, but I'm going to do it anyway. You should have 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. If we're talking pounds, it's roughly 1 gram per pound of body weight. Now, I take an idealistic approach on protein. I always try to get you guys to the higher end of this because we often miss the mark. So like, I would rather you guys master the skill of having this much protein. And then if you have a lower day, your lower day isn't going to be like 1 gram per kilogram. Your lower day is going to be 1.6 because you're in the habit of having 2 to 2.2. Now, that's not going to work for everyone. And so we need to be able to be flexible in this approach as well. So you can look at it as a range too. If we're coming in this range, we're doing pretty well. And the older you are, the more you need. And this is the other reason why I take an idealistic approach. Because, guys, if you're in your 30s and 40s and you can refine this habit now, again, that's going to protect you from being the frail 70-year-old. Because I'm sure if you guys bring this person that I got you to think about before to mind, they're also under eating on protein hard because they haven't cultivated the habit of eating enough protein throughout their life. And the reason you need more as you age is because we just get less efficient at utilizing protein. So for this process up here, muscle protein synthesis, our body just gets less good at using the protein that's coming in to offset the breakdown that's happening if we're not making the protein come in. So this is why I'm so idealistic on protein with you guys, because I'm like, let's just fucking build this habit now. Let's get used to have a protein-centric diet now. So when we're in our 60s and 70s and 80s and our appetite goes down, at least we're already protein focused and it's easier for us. So please forgive me. I just want the best for you guys. And, with timing, ideally, you want to distribute it evenly across the day because that way your body can absorb it the best. However, this matters a lot less if your overall protein is dialed in. What I mean by that is if you're hitting this range every day and your protein is not distributed very well, it's okay. But if you're hitting below this range, then you really want to make sure that it's spread out. And you also probably want to make sure that it's around your workouts, because that's where your body is going to need it the most. Because again, in our workouts, remember what we're doing, we're causing tears and we're breaking down muscle. So we need to refuel and we need to make sure that protein is coming in. Now, for most of us, it really means that we should have at least 30 grams of protein per meal. And you guys have access to this guide anyway, but I think it's really helpful to know what 30 grams of protein looks like, because sometimes it's actually more than we think. Like if you wanted to get it just from yogurt, you would need to have 400 grams. If you wanted to get it just from chickpeas, you would need to have 500 grams. So your leaner options of protein are going to be a lot easier, 150 grams of chicken, 180 grams of chicken thigh. So really educating yourself on this is important. And I think as women, we have these misconceptions like, oh no, I can't eat that much meat, or I can't have that much like of a serving size of a certain thing. And going on this muscle building journey really requires you to shift that mindset and just be like, you know what? I am going to have the biggest steak, or I am going to have the bigger piece of chicken because I actually fucking need it because I've got goals. So yeah, this guide is in your resource library. There's more things in there as well, but I just wanted to pop that in here as well, just to remind you, like really that 30 grams per meal for most of us is going to be the baseline, and you can definitely go above it. What I find is I find it easiest to get most of my protein from my main meals, and I would rather have my main meals at like that 40, 45 gram mark and know that I'm just going to hit it for the day. And then my snack can be something that's not protein focused and something that like I just enjoy. So let's talk about bulking. Two different types of bulking, kind of like with the deficit when we spoke about like hard and fast and like slow and sustainable. The first way to bulk is an aggressive bulk. Now, this is the fucking Instagram shit, guys, where it's like, oh, I'm in a bulking phase and I'm fluffy and I put on 10 kilos. And I am not about that life. And I'm not about making you guys live that life, because it's not worth it to me. It's not worth how much body fat you put on. What I want for you guys and what I really try to promote with you guys is taking that slightly slower, slightly longer approach where you get to have a body that you like the whole time. The way that I see it, our body image is kind of fragile. So like we shouldn't put ourselves in this yo-yo dieting life. It's not a good way to be. How about instead we get you to somewhere where you feel good, and then we work on the incremental changes. Now, if you're listening to me and you're like, Maureen, I want an aggressive bulk, I don't care about putting on body fat, then that's great too. And then we have to have that conversation and we can do that. I just want you guys to know where I stand on this. So in an aggressive bulk, we're really putting on like probably 2 kilos of fat a month. And we're putting on muscle as well, of course. And the calories are higher, like 500 to 600 calories above maintenance. Or you can do what's called a lean bulk and a slower bulk. It's not as fun because your calories don't get to be quite up so high, but it is fun when your clothes still fit and when you don't feel shit about yourself. So in that, we're in that like 10 to 15% above maintenance, 200 to 300 calories a day above maintenance. And this really prioritizes muscle over fat. So yes, it happens more slowly, but also you don't get to the end of this and go, now I have to lose 5 kilos because I feel shit. So, it's up to you which one you prefer, but I will always take you guys down this path and just make sure that we have a good time along the way. So it's okay that it's a little bit slower, because we also have to keep it realistic. The average muscle gain for a female is just 250 to 500 grams per month. Like that is it. So that's only 3 to 6 kilos per year. Now, this is going to depend on a few things. This is going to depend on where you're at in your journey. For example, for me, I'm just not going to be able to gain 6 kilos per year. And that's because I have been training for so long. If you are in the first year or two of your fitness journey, you probably can hit the 6 kilo number. If you're training at least 4 times a week and nailing your protein every day, you're probably going to get closer to it. But, if you're training 3 to 4 times a week, if your protein is inconsistent, we're really looking at this like 3 kilos as probably the more realistic one. But then what's going to happen as well is that you might lose some body fat along the way. So actually the scales might not change very much at all, which is why we're going to talk about in a minute, like measuring progress. But yeah, when we bulk more quickly, most of the time it's literally like 40, 50 to 50% more fat that we're putting on. So again, I don't see the appeal. The only appeal in this is that you get to boast about it on Instagram if you're that way inclined, and then you get to be like, no, go into a deficit. But again, I care about you guys going on a sustainable journey that actually feels good. So if the goal is to build muscle, I would rather we do it more slowly. You love the process, you love your body along the way, and then you don't end up in a place where you have to lose fat. So let's talk about the mindset that comes along with all of this. The first thing you have to do is you have to stay patient and realistic. Remember the slide before, 250 grams per month is fucking nothing. But you will notice it. You just won't notice it straight away, because then when we get to the 3 month mark, you have probably gained a kilo of muscle or maybe a little bit more. So it does take 3 to 6 months to see visible changes. And the first place you're going to notice those changes is the gym. There's this saying around like the gym is the only place where you can really see and feel and touch the outcome before you're there. Because when you have a pump, you kind of get a glimpse into the future, and you get a glimpse into like what your body will look like if you continue on this journey. So that's where like noticing how you feel at the gym is really, really important, because you're going to notice changes there first and how your body looks and feels different while you're training. But just be patient. Less scale, more mirror. So yeah, the scales will often show little to no change because, again, I don't like taking you guys down the aggressive path. So, we're not really going to notice these changes for a few months. First place you see changes in the gym, like I said, and you might need new clothes, and that's okay. And that's because if you're building muscle, your back might get a little bit bigger, but it's also going to get more shapely, and it's going to create more of like a snatched waist look. But that might mean that a top that used to zip up doesn't zip up anymore. It might mean that your jeans don't fit over your quads, but suddenly they're too big on your waist. Welcome to the gym life. I think this is an important mindset to break, because as girls, we're like, oh, if my clothes don't fit, like I'm doing something wrong, but you just have to be realistic, and you have to go, I'm going down this journey. I want to grow my glutes. My quads are probably going to grow too. And if my jeans are too small because I'm building muscle, it's not a bad thing. Bring yourself back to how you're feeling. And if you're feeling good and your clothes are a bit small now, it's actually not the end of the world. So, but you have to break that mindset, because I actually think that's one of those that's left over from diet culture, right? Where we're like, oh no, my clothes, they can't be tight. They can be tight in the right places. And then trust and love the process. Consistency over perfection. We want to celebrate lifting heavier weights, like Lee's 100-kilo deadlift, not just the body changes. Because you know what? If you show up and you focus on all this stuff, and I'm preaching this to you guys all the time, right? Your body will change. It's basically impossible for you to be putting in the work, following a structured program, hitting your protein, hitting your nutrition, and for your body not to change. So make sure you celebrate all of the things that are not your body, and then give yourself time to see the changes. And progress isn't always linear. Trust the science and trust your coach. So what I mean by that is so often when you guys are on a muscle building journey, it really is that 12, 14, 16, 20 week mark where you start to message me and go, holy shit, I love what I see in the mirror. It's not the 4 week mark. It's not the overnight change, but that's okay, because we're having fun, right? So you just got to trust, when you can't see the changes yet, you just have to trust and bring yourself back to the enjoyment that's in the whole thing. I'm really passionate about this because I obviously love lifting. I love this journey, and I want you guys to love it as well. So measuring progress. This is the last point I want to touch on. And we've kind of already touched on it a little bit as well. The first way you can measure progress on a muscle building journey is performance, because it is almost impossible for you to get stronger without building muscle. If your lifts are continuously increasing, you are building muscle. So when you can't see the physical changes yet, you can know that, like, if I'm getting stronger in the gym, I'm on the right path. And it's kind of the same in a deficit too. If you're maintaining your strength or even building strength in a deficit, it does mean that we're probably not losing muscle, which is awesome. Big tick. That's what we want. Body composition as well. So yeah, that's why we take photos every 2 weeks. This is why I want you to flex, guys, because of what I said before. When I said you're going to see the changes in the gym before you see the changes outside of the gym. So flex. This is why you guys always see me flex in my progress photos as well. And that's where because for me, like I said to you guys before, when I go on a journey like this, if I was like, I want to build muscle, it's going to be really fucking slow. But where I'm going to see it is when I'm flexing. This is why I like for you guys to flex, and why you should just do it and embrace it and have fun with it and smile. Take your measurements as well, because on a muscle building journey, the way that our measurements will often change is like, the waist measurement might go down, but the other measurements might go up. Or you'll notice that, maybe your back feels a little bit bigger, or maybe your quads feel a little bit bigger, and it's like not a bad thing. And you can consider a scan as well. Now, I want to drop a few caveats here, because those body scans, the one that you can get at most places is the one where you hold the handles, right? And you stand on the little metal, like the scales essentially, but you stand on them barefoot. They are okay, but they're not the be all and end all. And if you're going to do these scans, you have to promise me that you keep all of the circumstances the same. For example, if your first scan was fasted at 7 a.m., every scan should be fasted at 7 a.m. Actually, that's probably the best thing to do anyway, but you need to make sure that you recreate the same circumstances, because otherwise they can be notoriously inaccurate, because they just send an electrical current to your body and then the machine kind of guesses what's what. If you want it to go for like a more accurate scan, then you want to go for a DEXA scan, DEXA. That is the most accurate scan. That's also kind of affordable, but it's probably going to set you back like $150 or so. That's going to give you the best insight, but even they're not perfect. But if you want to do a scan, if you're motivated in that way, just make sure you give it like 12 to 24 weeks between scans as well. Because remember, progress is probably going to be slow. So if you get a scan like every 8 weeks, it's either going to lie to you or you're going to get disheartened along the way, because you're not going to see what you hoped. So if you're going to do the scan path, every 3 to 6 to 12 months is a good way to go. And then your recovery as well. Like if you're sleeping better, if you're recovering better, and if you're just like feeling better and more energized overall, those are all really good signs, because remember, muscle is something so positive for your health. So generally, if you're feeling good and like feeling in good health and feeling like you have more energy, that's also a good sign that you're making the right kind of progress on your muscle building journey. And then we want to tune into how we feel, more energetic, stronger, more confident, because ultimately, guys, it does come down to how you feel, right? Like if you are looking in the mirror and you're like, I feel fucking awesome, and you're on this muscle building journey, you're doing well. Doesn't matter what the scales say. Doesn't matter what anything else says. If you're feeling good, you're doing great. And confidence is such a big thing that comes from showing up for yourself in this way and building muscle and getting stronger and focusing on the process. So I always think that's like a really, really big sign that you're on the right path. And that's it. That's all I wanted to tell you guys today about, the muscle building journey. I would love to know if you guys have any questions, or if you learned anything new, if anything was confusing, literally anything, hit me with it. You can drop your questions in the chat, can raise your hand, or you can just unmute yourself. But I want to make sure that you guys get value from today. So if there is something that you're wondering about, let me know. Well, that's great. I love it. Awesome, guys. Well, if we have no questions, that is fine as well. I hope you got some value from today. Don't forget, tomorrow our movement challenge starts. So I'm really fucking excited to see you guys all hook in, get involved, commit to 30 minutes of movement a day. It's going to be so much fun. And that is it. enjoy your Sunday/Saturday night. Yes, just get full permission to eat a heap of chicken servings for dinner. That's right. Eat your chicken, eat your protein, smash your workouts this week, guys. Let's fucking do this. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And I'll see you next week. Next week, we're talking about supplements, guys. So if you have a specific request and a supplement that you want me to touch on, can you please send me a message? Because a couple of you guys have like thrown a few things in. And again, I want to make sure it's super valuable for you guys. So anything you want me to talk about next week, let me know and I will. Cool. Thank you so much, team. Have the best night. And I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. Bye.
Bye. Sorry I was late.